¿Tengo que encender algo? Ah, no tengo que encender nada. Yo soy...
I'm going to keep my comments very short. I'd like to start by thanking all of you joining us today, dear friends, and Teresa, third Vice President of the Spanish government. Welcome to you. So we will be presenting to you TRAC this morning. A lot of people are asking me about this. What is TRAC? Perhaps Técnicas Reunidas is changing its corporate headquarters. No. We were in Chamberí in the center of Madrid, and we've come as far as this point here in Las Tablas, not far. So what we want to do is, and you'll see this later on this morning, is focus on providing an active initiative response to what we're all calling energy transition and decarbonisation. TRAC is our response. Are we already in that transition? You will see that later on when Eduardo talks to you in more detail about the activities that we are undertaking. And even later, in a short while, Joaquin will be explaining the know-how that we have in Técnicas Reunidas and what TRAC is, how it slots into that technology. And Emilia, who is our technology expert and the head of operations and our energy transition, will go through those projects one by one. You will know exactly what Técnicas Reunidas is and what TRAC is too, as we take that step forward to the front line. Therefore, and I said I'd like to keep my comments short. I'd like to say thank you very much to a number of familiar faces here. Welcome to a whole host of clients who are joining us today here, to our partners, to our suppliers, to all of you who have been beside us as we have moved forward as Técnicas Reunidas to today when we're presenting TRAC. And this presentation today then, what's going to happen? I will talk for a little while and try and keep it as short as I can. And then Eduardo San Miguel, who is our CEO of the Técnicas Reunidas group, will run through with you the importance of the great opportunities that will be ahead of us and how important it is for us to organize ourselves and harness the opportunities of that market. The market that is ahead of us is major. Are we already there? Not quite yet. We have to go further. After Eduardo speaks, we'll hear from Joaquin Pérez Ayala, who's sitting here opposite me now. He's the director of TRAC, Energy Transition. He'll be going through our technology and industrial commitments, our pledge there, and we'll learn, all of us, about what we want from TRAC and what Técnicas Reunidas wants. When I mix up TRAC and Técnicas Reunidas, you might think that I'm from Galicia, where we perhaps mix things up, but no, that's not the case. Maybe Catalan, but no, I'm not from Galicia. I'm not Gallego. So TRAC is actually Técnicas Reunidas. And to end the event today, Emilia Arias will be speaking. I can see her in the front row here. She has been a process director. That's the chemical side, the technology side, the know-how part of our business. For many, many years, she has been our processes director, I said. And not just that. I remember that we used to go out to the trade fairs. We used to go to Abu Dhabi, I remember that, and also in Spain. We've been to a number of different countries together. Emilia is an technology expert, and clients love her. You develop very complicated projects, but you like going to trade fairs, don't you? And you'll hear that. She'll be talking to you about the specific projects that we're already developing in different parts of the world. And you'll see that Emilia is a very smart woman. She's a technologist. She is a manager too, because she has managed our big teams in Técnicas Reunidas. And today, she's heading our technology division. She's heading TRAC too. And lastly, this morning, when we have got to the point where we have understood what Técnicas Reunidas is and what TRAC is and what our response to the energy transition actually is, we will give the floor to our third Vice President of the Spanish government, Teresa Ribera, for her to close this event today. So after those comments for you, let's see if we can remind you of some aspects. A lot of people who have been here in the past, then have been locked down, and then we've had crisis, and they may actually not remember what Técnicas Reunidas is, or maybe they never knew what Técnicas Reunidas is. So, leader. Everybody wants to be a leader. In Spain, there are 3 or 4 companies that say they are the leaders. I'm not going to say that we're definitely us, but there are only a top 3 there that are engineering, industrial engineering leaders. Those who can set up a task force, and I'm going to use that word, task force, I like that word, a task force of engineers and process experts from different disciplines to be able to come up with a response with 400 engineers. There are 3 companies in Europe like us. We are an engineering leader. It says that we are 60, perhaps more than that. I'm 61, but Técnicas Reunidas, I think, started off in 1959. And I think it was in 1960 that the company was actually incorporated in writing, and I was born in 61. So Santos Massa we would like to say how many years that we have been working and how many plants that we've worked on. More than 1,000 industrial plants, mainly energy plants. And you may be wondering, what have you been doing lately? Well, if I take you back through the last 10 years, we had our IPO started to be listed on the Spanish Stock Exchange in 2006, and we have completed, some of these projects have been Turkey, more than $50 billion in projects, that is industrial plants, that is the value of them over the last 10 years. And so we are a leading company. And here in these offices, in that building over there, and over there too, as I said, we used to be back in the center of Madrid, in Champerí, but now in Las Tablas, more than 4,500 engineers. There are more than 7,000 of us in total. The know-how, the engineering know-how is here. And then Eduardo will be talking to you when I finish my comments, and he'll be talking through in much more detail about those huge opportunities that are awaiting us, and the traditional areas that we also have to invest in, the traditional energies that we have to clean up, and also we have to invest, of course, in the energy of tomorrow, the 4,500 engineers that will have to work on today's energies, but we also have to undertake that transition. We have to transform what we're doing for tomorrow. The transition maybe sounds a little weak as a term, maybe it's a bit of a euphemism. So we talk about transition and transformation, and sometimes we even like to talk about revolution or evolution. We have to do that. We have to move forward because tomorrow's energy is already here today. And now let me see. What a lovely slide this one is, isn't it? Full of little circles and some text there. But when I talk about Técnicas Reunidas and when I talk about track, you may say, but what is this? What is the added value? Well, the added value that we have in Técnicas Reunidas is our know-how. If you look around at these office buildings, they're beautiful, aren't they? But they're not ours. We don't have that. We have 4,500 engineers in Madrid, which is our know-how center, and a few 100 down there in Cartagena in Spain. Our engineers love to live down there in Cartagena, and if we want to have good engineers, we will have to take them to Cartagena, but that's in Spain, not Cartagena de las Indias, over and then we have somebody here, our director here, who is married to a Colombian, thinking, oh, we love to go off to Cartagena de las Indias in Colombia, but no, we won't. So we are a company that has its own technologies, and we also scale up technologies. We have procedures and methodologies to be able to develop new technologies. A lot of our clients, such as Repsol or Exxon or whatever, such as Aramco, maybe start off with a more undeveloped technology, and we walk them through that process till it becomes a big industrial plant. So what you need there is not necessarily experience, but procedures. It's a word that we're always banding around here in this business. You have to set out procedures in this business so that we can bring somebody in to audit our procedures. Engineering and procedures are two words that go hand in hand. You might have very smart engineers, but if you don't have procedures to be able to set up the multidisciplinary teams with those hundreds of engineers to assemble and put together a plant that will be worth 2.5 billion of years to come. And to do that, what do you need? You need to have know-how and training and procedures. And that is the platform that we have in Técnicas Reunidas. Sometimes it's very hard to explain that to anybody. And that is our barrier to entry there. It's difficult to replicate too, and that is why it's such a big opportunity for us to form part of and to take a leading role in that transformation, let me say that again, energy transformation, because perhaps because transition maybe not the right term, but transformation is. So we've been working on yesterday's energies in all of them, and we've been working on today's energies, and we're already starting to work on tomorrow's energies. And these technologies, where we have our footprint, I don't want to talk too long about these. I just want to run through them very quickly. But when anyone talks about transition or transformation, they think about solar panels. And what else can we do there? We would of course have to just bring those in and import them. Not much added value there. Wind, we've also done some of that. We've put a small wind energy plant next to a big plant, but not a lot of added value there. But where is the value add? It's anything to do with industry, with chemical processes and the industrial process. That is where we have our added value. Hydrogen, the whole change. We've worked on hydrogen, but always as part of the hydrocarbons idea. Now we're going to use electrolysis and derivatives. We're working throughout all of these different phases in the change. So where's the added value? It's in the circular economy. That is a generation of energy through green fuels, biomass, for instance, to be able to produce different sources of energies. And there's a tremendous amount of added value there, because a lot of our clients now, and a lot of those that will become our clients, steel mills or manufacturers that don't necessarily have to be our traditional clients, can see that added value. And this is what we're working on now. We're already developing plants there in England with Anglo-Saxon partners for carbon capture, use, and sequestration. It is such an important part, such a necessary part of this transformation that we are all aspiring to make sure it's successful. So you may be wondering, why track? If you're already doing this, just carry on doing it. And so my answer to you is that, well, this is something that we used to criticize ourselves for doing, Eduardo too, that it's fine to continue and just keep going, but you can never win a war or even win a football match on the counter-attack. So that would be if clients would come to us and say what they wanted and just counter-attack. And we've been successful doing that. But the war, this is the war we all want to win. The war has to be won by going on the offensive, using the Técnicas Reunidas platform we've got and moving forward, getting into that front line, because it's a war that we all want to win. And Técnicas Reunidas wants to win it too. And this is the time for us to do that. Even those at the back of the room there, you're a long way back. I can't see who you are. But you all want to win that war too, don't you? And that means zero emissions by 2050. Net zero 2050. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Juan. Thank you, distinguished Vice President of the government, and thank you all for joining us today in such an important journey in the history of Técnicas Reunidas. Before we begin, I would like to share with all of you a video that explains the rationale behind track. Técnicas Reunidas presents its response to the new energy scenario. Committed to the huge challenge of net zero 2050. We want to make our contribution to finding the answer to the big question marks. How can we make a world of more than 9 billion inhabitants in 2050 more sustainable? How can we meet the needs of today's economy without compromising future generations? How can we adapt complete value chains to new technologies? How can we solve the challenge of more energy and less emissions? Today, we are taking a step forward in our commitment to the energy transition. We are presenting our pledge for decarbonisation of the economy. Transition, transformation, action, commitment, know-how.
No estoy de acuerdo con.
I beg to disagree with Juan. This is not a transformation, it's rather a revolution. We are pleased to take part of this revolution. We are the ones transforming ideas into realities. And on the other hand, it really bestows upon us enormous responsibility and accountability because we really need to rise up to the occasion. Figures are quite cumbersome in the world of energy. By 2023, $8 billion is expected to be invested, 1 billion euros, and by 2035, in 10 years, 1.7 billion are expected to be invested. The investment in energy will grow by 70%, unevenly distributed. On the one hand, conventional energy will be maintained, the volume of investments won't go down, and it will continue to grow, especially when it comes to renewable energies. But there's going to be a major surge in the decarbonisation strategy. 2/3 of such growth, of that additional 70% to be included, has to do with decarbonisation. And being selfish, Técnicas Reunidas can benefit enormously because it can broaden our target by 55% approximately. We are worried about the world of energy, but there are numerous types of CO2 emissions and other heavy emitting industries. And in particular, we have selected two of them, the steel and cement industries. And among those two, these accounts for roughly 15% of the total emissions in the atmosphere. In relative terms, what this 15% accounts for is the emissions of the United States for a whole year. Likewise, this presents a unique investment opportunity for us. It's a huge business potential. The investment in these two blocks for the next 10 fiscal years is roughly 200 billion euros. Perhaps Joaquin can elaborate a little bit more on this, but we are well prepared. We have a very robust catalogue of products. We have some presence in biofuels, circular economy, hydrogen, but as well as in capture, storage and sequestration of carbon. And we also have another line in the field of energy efficiency and technological improvement. On the right hand of the screen, you see the percentage of emissions that can be mitigated thanks to the use of these technologies that we can develop, account for 52% of the avoided emissions that we want to eliminate. So 52%, I'm talking about the whole global planet. But if we now focus on the industry-based emissions, our technologies can avoid up to 86% of such emissions. well, this is my financial part, but there's another part I'm very passionate about that has to do with our strategy, but because at the time being, this is not only about ensuring an adequate performance, top results, but you also need to pass through a message, a raison d'etre. And that's why I wanted to spend a few minutes to explain our monogram and the name behind track. Well, the monogram is shown on the screen that shows you a footprint, and in blue and green paths, the monogram has a message within it. On the one hand, the footprint, which is really what we want to leave in our societies as companies. On the other hand, the world, because Técnicas Reunidas had always an international aspiration, because we are exporting know-how, and we also, the moving drivers to other companies as when we export such technologies. And thirdly, these are the paths, because they have to do with specific roadmaps to achieve a goal in perfectly defined means and tracks. And I love the monogram, really, but because I believe it is very attractive and it has some appeal to it. But I love the name as well, because track divides into TR on the one hand, Técnicas Reunidas, as it stands for name. So 60-odd years of history with a strong recognition among our international clients, large industrial sites. It is the history of a large company that designs and builds industrial plants. ACK stands for action, commitment, and know-how, because that really refers, and I'm just looking at the camera, that really refers to the 8,000 employees watching us online. Our professionals, our employees, our human assets that work day and night to ensure that ideas become realities, certain realities. And we would like to take the opportunity to thank them, letting them know that part of this word speaks for them. Lastly, a little bit of an announcement. We want to launch the Track Academy. We have realized in the last 3 years, where we really immersed ourselves in this energy transition, we need a set of knowledge, skills, understanding climate change, technologies, regulation, understanding how all markets associated to the energy transition work. And this is an extensive know-how that we need to pass on to our professionals so they know their task in depth. So as such, we wanted to create the Track Academy, so all the professionals within our company can gain access to this set of knowledge. This is the short-term ambition in the next 18 months, because at the end of the day, what we want in the long run, and especially if we start in 2024, our intention is for all this knowledge to be, shared at universities. So when these professionals graduated, they are fully embedded and familiar with this extensive knowledge that is so badly needed for the Spanish companies, and namely to Técnicas Reunidas in particular. In line with today's timeline and agenda, I'm now going to hand over the floor to Joaquín Pérez de Ayala, the head of this project. He's really the go-to expert here. Thank you very much indeed.
Muchas gracias.
Well, good afternoon to all of you. Thank you very much. And if you wouldn't mind, I will read out what I've written down so I don't miss anything out from the things that I have to say. Thank you, Eduardo, Juan, and to you, the third Vice President of the Spanish government. welcome to you and to everyone here. And I would like to say, too, as the previous speakers, thank you for joining us on this very special day in Técnicas Reunidas. Not just those of you who are here physically, but those of you who are watching us through the streaming connection. And those who have worked so hard to prepare this event, thank you very much to all of you. Now, Juan's explained to you why Técnicas Reunidas is a very valuable tool for this decarbonisation scenario that lies ahead of us. And Eduardo's talked to you about the volume of business and the reason why we are doing this. And Emilia will then talk to you about our current footprint in Técnicas Reunidas, and we'll talk about our transition, decarbonisation, which is already moving forward. And I will try to explain to you what we are working on right now. Well, as Juan and Eduardo have already told you, Técnicas Reunidas is already part of this transition. We're already involved in decarbonisation. That is the reality. It's a fact of life. And all of this is because we want more. That is why we want to have more services, we want more growth markets and new industries. What we're doing in Técnicas Reunidas is to try to identify new opportunities and develop new services on the basis of the capabilities and skills that Juan was talking to you about, and you've already seen in the presentation today. So this is where we are today. These services are on this slide, and we will give you some details and spend a little more time on them if we could. First of all, engineering services. Engineering service historically in Técnicas Reunidas have been services that have been rendered to those big industrial plants. And now what we're doing is helping big investors, funds, as well as these plants to really shape and configure their plans and their projects on a solid basis. Juan's been talking about these projects, and there are more than 30 projects that we've already worked on, and they have a big impact. Look at the figures here on the screen. If these projects were to be executed, the ones we're working on, we would be avoiding 25 million tons of CO2 per year emissions. That's the potential impact. That would be year on year, and that would be equal to 10% of Spain's emissions in 1 year. These are the figures that we would like to target, and hopefully that target will increase over the next few years. So we're beginning to work on a new activity. We're launching project structuring. We've already been making progress, and we think there are some big investment opportunities there. We've started off with Spain with 2 projects in zones that are included in the fair transition area. This is a second generation. We have this green ammonia project. It will require a lot of endeavours, but we will be able to achieve this. About 400 million euros in investment will create about 350 direct or indirect jobs. Now, these projects, and I'll talk about them in a moment, mean that we have to set up end-to-end complete value chains around it. It's not just about defining the investment or defining the technology. It's more than that. You have to actually define the whole business surrounding the project. Técnicas Reunidas is also doing that. We're working on that together with a lot of partners. A lot of you here in the audience are our partners working on this today. We're doing this in Spain, but we also want to do this mainly in Europe and the USA, where the markets have more attractive regulatory environments for us. We're also talking about creating new recurring services. This is a new idea. And as we were telling you earlier, the platform that we have already got means that we can be credible when we put forward new things, novel ideas, innovative things that people are perhaps not accustomed to. We want to be able to support our clients as they start to activate their assets. We're working on 2 business lines now. One is carbon management, and the other one is methane management. These are responsible together for 75% of all of the carbon emissions up to now. Now, let me just talk about carbon management to you. This is quite a tricky scheme, isn't it, that you can see there on the slide there. But it is actually complicated. You know that there are some industries that will not be able to decarbonize without capturing carbon, such as cement. 60% of all of those emissions in cement are not associated with the combustion of energy. It's the process itself. So unless there's carbon capture, there will be no possibility of decarbonizing this industry. We want to be working together with that industry. So they will have to manage the capture, the use and storage of carbon. It's a new job for them. It's a new task and difficult to manage. That is where we want to play a part. We want to be able to help them to remove the carbon out of the gases they're using in the processes and also manage to make it, use a liquefaction for it, to turn it into a liquid. It's not an easy task. It means that we have to really package up a whole value proposition for the service with technical and regulatory difficulties, but this will happen because this is a market that will develop in the future, and we will be there in that market. Turning to methane management, I think you're all familiar with the fact that this is, in the short term, the biggest impacting greenhouse gas that we have. Historically, 30% of the global warming is due to methane, and that figure will increase as we move forward. So how do you avoid methane emissions? It's not tricky, you know. You just have to get to work on it. But the management system has to be reliable. It has to be ongoing. You have to identify and quantify those leaks of methane. We're using satellite technology with drones, and we're using land fixed and mobile sensors. We need to integrate all of that information, the information that we're capturing from top down and bottom up. We have to integrate all of those data, identify the problems, work out the solutions, implement them, and ensure that we have a constant monitoring system in play. We're already working with a multinational company here, a player, to be able to help them manage their methane assets in the Middle East. This is a clear-cut example of the quality that we have in our Técnicas Reunidas platform. We've been able to put forward a very serious, credible proposal to the client who is delighted with it. Now, lastly, we also want to contribute to developing technologies associated with energy transition, decarbonization. We have a technology center already. More than 70 people have been working with us in that center. We have successful technologies, recovering phosphor from waste treatment plants or water treatment plant. We have technologies that use critical raw materials too. We also have a process to scale up these technologies. We want to bring together these capabilities and work on scaling up those technologies that are linked to energy transition and circular economy areas. So this is our current proposition to you. You can see that there. We will, of course, come up with new ideas. We will look for those new ideas for our capabilities in Técnicas Reunidas. And we're doing this on a robust basis, but we also want to do this fast. And this is why we have this combination with McKinsey. We think it's perfect. We're bringing together Técnicas Reunidas capabilities with the market knowledge and business knowledge that McKinsey has. McKinsey has studied the track proposal, and they are convinced that there's a great value inherent in it if we work together. And that's what we're doing. We're working together to very quickly, on a robust basis, implement track. We are sure that this will be a success for them and for us. And now I'd like to talk about collaboration. I'm actually going off script a little, and I might take up a little longer on this. But Juan mentioned this, and it is important. If we want decarbonization to be done faster, we need to take a different approach to traditional projects. And that is why I would call on all of you here today, because here we have a whole host of different companies represented here, because the investment that will enable decarbonization are based on businesses that have to be consolidated or based on technologies that we need to trust more. What is implicit in this industrial transformation is that we have to work together, otherwise we will be too slow in decarbonization. I was working out some figures here. In early 1990s, we had a special regime for a renewable energy generation, which covered about 5% of all of electricity generation back then in Spain. In 2021, that increased to 45 or 50% here in Spain. That is quite a success. We should be happy about that, but it's taken us 25 to 30 years to get to this point with these figures. In 25 to 30 years' times, well, we'll be in 2050, so there are 10,000 days to go. That is something that we heard recently on Spanish television, and I don't think we can afford to have that slow pace. That's why we need to come up with flexible and imaginative ways of doing this to ensure that decarbonisation happens fast, and that is why collaboration is essential. And this is why I'm going off script. And let me put your minds at rest. I'm not going to show you a video. But what I want to do is to convey to you a message. The message in the video, decarbonisation is a wonderful example of entrepreneurship. And this is something that can go up or down. It could be a roller coaster. But when you do something like this, then let me give you a quote. It's from Star Wars, which I love. There's a scene in The Empire Fights Back when Yoda, that little fat guy, that small guy who's the wise guy, asks Lucas Skywalker, who's the blonde, attractive guy, to lift up with his mental strength a spacecraft that has come to ground. He says to be able to do it, you have to put in practice what you've learned. And after resisting for a while, he says, finally, Lucas Skywalker says, that's fine, I will try it. But the master says, no, you either do it or you don't. You don't just try doing it. So what I mean by this is we have to collaborate. If we want decarbonisation to happen fast, maybe it's not about learning from everything that we've learned, but it means about taking a flexible approach, a imaginative approach to our new projects. I'm sure with that spirit, all of us here today will be able to deal with the challenge of decarbonisation. We all have to be a bit like Yoda. We will do it. We won't try to do it. And let me give the floor now to Emilia Arias, who has had a noteworthy role in everything we're talking about today. Thank you.
Good afternoon and welcome. Thank you very much for your kind presence here today. That's a rock concert that was a true revolution in the 1980s in this country. But this is truly a revolution in our industry. And this is all about revolution and transformation. In the upcoming slides, I'm going to try and give you a few brushstrokes and very representative figures of what's behind and what we are undertaking in the field of energy transition at Técnicas Reunidas. So come to this roller coaster of the circular economy. We are the backbone of the circular economy. 100% of the technologies under development in Técnicas Reunidas have to do with the circular economy. We are currently developing our own in-house technologies and third-party technologies in the field of electrolysis, high-efficient hydrogen production. Likewise, we are making a substantial effort in decarbonisation in biorefineries. We are also working in the field of plastic recycling, and we already have the necessary technologies that allow for the recovery of metals and valuable elements from the waste, like phosphorus, zinc, and iron ore. And we have begun with a technological development. This is what we do within our projects. We are also executing green hydrogen projects and electrolysis, hydrogen generation, biorefineries, carbon capture, hydrogen production, CO2 capture in order to be transformed in biofuels. So we are present in the entire value chain of the circular economy. Allow me to present a few projects in the field of hydrogen. We have numerous hydrogen projects in Spain based on electrolysis. And in Australia with CO2 capture, namely the project in Spain called Catalina, 500 megawatts that can be producing 52,000 tons of green hydrogen a year, thus avoiding 400,000 tons of CO2 every single year. And the value of our entire hydrogen projects can avoid up to 8 million tons of CO2 to be avoided every single year. In biofuels, we have numerous projects, namely in Spain, Latin America, and Europe. And here we wanted to stress the AMA project that at the end of the year will enter into the EPC stage, where we produce 90,000 tons of biomethanol a year using organic waste from cities and rural areas or forest. The project will ensure avoiding 77,000 tons of CO2. And in total, all the biofuel projects that we are currently developing at TR will avoid 1 million tons of CO2. Now, in terms of CO2 capture, for obvious reasons, these avoids the biggest amount of avoided CO2 emissions, 16 in particular. The Peterhead project in the United Kingdom, with a planned CCGT of 800 megawatts, will be able to recover 95% of the CO2 emissions, equivalent to 2.2 million tons of capture CO2. But in Spain, we are also boosting the CCS projects based on biomass, which will transform into negative emissions, negative CO2 emissions. And methane, we have a flagship project that is in an early stage in order to help an international player that runs different oil and gas assets in the management of their methane emissions. Técnicas Reunidas, thanks to its outstanding track platform, has ensured its presence in different projects under development in Spain, Europe, and many other continents. And the total number of avoided emissions will be 25 million tons of CO2 per year. And the figure would grow, hopefully going further, in order to accomplish our decarbonisation target. This is just the beginning. Thank you very much indeed.
Juan,
Eduardo, Joaquin, and Emilia, it's wonderful to be here with you in this room, which is absolutely full, and with those stimulating, interesting presentations that you've given us this morning. You have complemented the picture, haven't you? You've built up a picture for us in which the pace that we will move forward cannot be just proportional growth pace, but it has to be exponential to get to the target. Let me, if I can, talk about the change in the paradigm, that paradigm shift that we're experiencing now, and what I've understood from your words this morning. And I've understood that you were talking about maybe going off to Cartagena de las Indias. I'm sure that you will be able to achieve that. I'm sure you'll be able to promote and develop projects for people who are there too. There's a lot of work to be done. And we need to use all of our thinking and imagination there. Let me quickly go back, if I could, over 25 years, exciting, fast-moving times that have allowed us to take some steps forward towards that paradigm shift. As you were mentioning, not that long ago, we felt that this whole issue of climate change could be resolved and sorted out simply with regulation or better international cooperation, or even with that very important assumption that if we could actually set a price that could matter, if we could actually set out an incentive to make sure that we could move forward even quickly even more quickly than before. But we did realize at one point that the Kyoto Protocol was not enough, because we need everybody to be able to actually contribute at a faster pace according to their own capacities and capabilities. And when we say everyone, it's the whole world. And more than that, the world is too small. And public and private partners, technologists, financial partners, social partners, and all generators of value or public opinion. That world is too interdependent to be able to feel that just by moving forward with one sector that we could actually end up with an intensive, fast transformation without a common horizon or common idea in mind. And this is something that we came to realize quite quickly. But recently, when we started working with McKinsey, doing some consultancy work, do you remember that watershed moment back in 2009 in Copenhagen at the climate conference? We realized that if that was the target, I mean, what would be the rate of progress of all the technology at the time that were included in the radar of our thinking to be able to reduce emissions? But it wasn't until the Paris Accord when we reached the conclusion that we have to actually set out that common timeline, that common horizon, because the answers are important, but the questions are also important. And that video was a good example of that, that what has showed us. We have to make a list of those questions that all of us in our different spheres of responsibility can use to get our minds running, to find out what the right answers are for that question, so that there can be no distinction between what we're doing, because we're all sharing the same challenges. We all have to tackle those same challenges. And that's how we started to change our mindset and think differently. If we really do want to achieve that decarbonisation, if we really do want it to actually head towards that net zero emissions target by 2050, the analysis, looking back with hindsight, as if we were in 2050, would matter. We'd have to see what could we do to be able to reach that point. What's the contribution we have to make? And that whole exercise is completely different to setting out long-term objectives or mid-term objectives with different regulatory environments. That is what they're all important, though. We have these transitional provisions that will be sending out the right signals to technologies, to financial partners, so that we can move away from the traditional way we've always regulated and legislated. We have, we publish a law in the official journal, and that's it. Everyone has to start to work on it. No, it's about transition. We're talking about a couple of decades of transition, changing the model of the way we live and the way we consume. And at the same time, we have to think how all of us from different spheres and different countries can find a way to make a balanced contribution. Let's do these things in a more orderly, fair, reasonable fashion. And this is not straightforward. It's not simple. But your exercise here today is highly interesting, because in all of these strategies, in all of these pathways that combine the print, the world, and the path, we have to start to identify those opportunities that can be harnessed. They were very much part of that presentation that you've shown us this morning. You've identified those opportunities that completely change that strategic framework that you're operating in. And those questions, where are the difficulties that we have to pay most attention to if we are to ensure they don't actually turn out to be difficulties? Because we have to get through those difficulties, even though we don't have the answer today. And that is an exercise that is wonderful and so important, and it's an exercise that perhaps kicked off in 2015 in Paris, and that's allowed us to reach this cruising speed. And before that, there was a lot of thinking about not being reactive, about being constructive and putting forward proposals. Professor Nicholas Stern in 2005, in his Economy of Climate Change, which has enriched us since then, talked about transforming the world, and that requires a massive amounts of investment, and as well as triggering a whole host of opportunities and economic activity and job creation, it's also an opportunity for us to create a better world. But once again, we have to set out the questions differently, ask them differently. We have to think about how we can build up what was called the tragedy of the horizon, and make sure it's not a tragedy. It needs to be something else, and with the flexibility required by each one of those different phases that we have to work our way through. Let's not lose sight of that target, that objective, that makes that a difference, a distinction between being successful or falling off the cliff edge, the precipice. And Joaquin was talking about that. Let's not try to do that. Let's do it. If we have to be successful, and a company like this one, which is a success story, it's wonderful to see the way that you are operating all over the world, because you've been able to develop those process solutions, engineering solutions, thinking about new technologies, working in different fields, and that you can be a leading player. And I do stress the fact that we as governments have to take on this role. We need to be able to think about where those alternatives are and how we can actually bring in taxes, investments, the regulatory framework, and cooperate with other countries. It's true, it's there, but each company also has its own context from which it can put forward solutions. As I said before, it is all about a different strategy. A company can put forward its portfolio of answers to do whatever its board of directors and shareholders asks it to do, and it has to be successful, of course. That is why you need to have context, opportunities, and capabilities. You have all of that, don't you? And you are putting that in practice. But the second conclusion is, what can we do in our company? And I like particularly the fact that one of the answers that you've come up with to that question is that we are sure that our professionals are asking the right questions, are coming up with the answers, and they're in a position to share that know-how or to be able to continue to learn with others who are clients or people or individuals, institutions or corporations that are calling on us to help them in this company. Because the other dimension, the third one that's important, fundamental, is that you have to be aware of the particular responsibility that you have, those of you who are in a leading position in a certain sector. If you are now a benchmark company, well, that's a gift, isn't it? But it is also a bit of a poison challenge, isn't it? It's not enough to sit back and rest on your laurels. You also have to think about how you do things, how you can do things differently. There is a world out there that we have to keep up with. And if you can come up with these detailed solutions, that then maybe there are alternatives that will help us get away from the feeling that there is nothing that can be done. So if we are going to be able to come up with some way of achieving that target in 2050, then right now, globally, then there is this technology race that has kicked off. There are visible tensions and difficulties and fragilities out there because of that dependence that we weren't able to see fast enough or react to fast enough. And there's now this additional spur there for many of the processes that are already in practice, because it makes sense in financial, economic terms, and it's in energy terms too. It's not just about the climate. And secondly, because this is all about winning the day and winning tomorrow, and we have to find ways of cooperating to come up with those solutions. And this is another way of looking at this, although not everyone likes to look at it. They're all doing better than we are, and we have to make sure that we can also not miss out. And that is also part of the discussion that we've heard over recent weeks. And I think we're in a good position to be able to respond in a highly positive way to many of these questions. And Spain has a lot of reasons to feel proud in this race. One, because it's true that we have the physical conditions, the climate conditions, geographical conditions to ensure that the answers, not all of the answers, but all of your answers were interesting, but certainly Spain has a lot of the factual opportunities and possibilities to answer the questions. And secondly, because we have something that is present in this room and in the figures that you've shown us today, we have exceptional human capital, human talent, engineers who are trained, who are flexible when seeking solutions and do excellent work. And I think that is so important. Do we have enough professionals to tackle all of these needs? No. And that is another highly exciting element in your proposal there. We need to reinforce training. We need to ensure that we can all continue to work on coming up with those questions and finding the answers right across the board in all different stages of our education and vocational training system. We've done a lot there already, and we will continue to do that also at university at that level. But at the same time, when we have trained graduates that are also at work, things are changing so fast. That is a characteristic of this revolution, this transition. It's so intense. The rate of change is intense, so that we have to really ensure that we are on our toes to make sure we don't get left behind. There are other questions that are important, and that is that our companies, and particularly Técnicas Reunidas, which is in leading the way forward, they have a global footprint, and that is significant, with the right size to be able to be flexible, with the right size to be able to do this with an active presence and solvency in all of the different geographies where they do business, with that portfolio that allows them to think about the step changes in capture and use of carbon and methane management, and a lot of those different points of the value chains that we're seeing as part of the circular economy today. So let me end simply by saying, thinking about the Star Wars, the Harrison Ford, the climate activist, may the force be with you, I would say to end. So off you go. Let's bring out those swords. Luke Skywalker, there's a lot of empire out there that we have to conquer as we're building a better future for all of us. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Vice President. Thank you to all of you here today in the room, and I don't know how many of you out there listening to us and following us on the streaming connection. Eduardo, thank you very much to all of the Técnicas Reunidas team through you. And that's all for today. I think that brings this event to an end. This has been our premiere, our debut there, and I don't know what's next, but somewhere close by I will be taken to the right place. I'm sure there will be a little reception for us. I think there'll be a snack before lunch. That's all. Thank you very much to all of you, and particularly once again to the Vice President of the Spanish government, and we'll see you soon. It's not my love. She's just a girl who plans her. I am the one, but the kid is not my son. She says I am the one, but the kid is not my son. And 40 nights, Lois on her side, but who can stand when she's seen the men, her schemes and plans? 'Cause we dance on the floor in the round.